Ohai. Thailand, the state in Southeast Asia located in the southwest part of the peninsula of Indochina and in a northern part of the Malay Peninsula. The name, a word melt, means freedom, the country. Quite is repaid. Thailand, the only country of Southeast Asia which kept independence of the European states while all neighboring countries were colonies of France or Great Britain. Thailand, the English-speaking version of the name of the country, entered into use in 1939. The country of Thais means, the Thai option sounds as Praketer Myenti. The name of the country became eponymy for such names as the Thai cat, the Siamese cat, Siamese twins, Thai boxing and the Thai massage. Thailand is located in Southeast Asia, on the peninsulas of Indochina and Malacca. From the west is washed by the Andaman Sea, from the east the Gulf of Thailand of the South China Sea. The territory of Thailand is extended from the north on the south. Distance from the most northern point to the most southern point minus 1860 km.
Thanks to the central position in Southeast Asia and the greatest extent among the countries of the region from the north on the south, Thailand has the most various climate in Southeast Asia. Therefore crops of the main cultures are reaped several times a year, and the tourist season flows from some climatic zones in others, doing Thailand by one of the few year-round tourist centers in the world.
The woods occupy 37% of the territory of the country. In the north tropical Listopadni, in more damp southern areas evergreen tropical. The northern part of the country is occupied by the Thai mountains. There is the highest point of the country, Bointanon, 2565 m. The northeast part called Isan is occupied by the Korat Plateau. The main part of the central region of Thailand is occupied by the valley of the river Chopkraya. The southern part of Thailand shares the Malay Peninsula with Myanmar in the north and Malaysia in the south. The list of the states on which Thailand borders: Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, Malaysia, Vietnam. Climate of Thailand: damp tropical in the north of the country, and subequatorial in the central and southern parts, and on border with Malaysia, equatorial. It is explained by arrangement of the most part of the country in tropical and subequatorial belts and influence of southwest and northeast monsoons. The distance between extreme northern and extreme southern points of Thailand makes 1860 km, and difference of latitudes about 15. Such extent from the north on the south is climate of Thailand by one of the most various in Southeast Asia. Weather conditions in Thailand make 3 seasons. The first of them begins in the middle of May and proceeds to the middle of October. It is a rainy season, brought by a southwest monsoon. Most of all rainfall drops out in August and September. Also at this time there are tropical cyclones that sometimes leads to floods. By November rain stop, and there comes the cool dry season proceeding to the middle of February. At this time the northeast monsoon prevails. After weakening of monsoons in February, May, there comes the strong heat, and the humidity of air gradually increases up to the beginning of a new monsoonal season. The closer to the equator the country south, the temperature difference is less. So in mountains in the north in the most cool months, from December to February, the nighttime temperature of air can fall to 0, whereas in the afternoon it reaches +25 C. The most high temperature is observed in April and May, then it is above +35°C, but happens also up to +40°C. Rainfall in Thailand from 1200 to 1600 may year drop out on average. However, in some regions in the south and the east the annual level of rainfall can exceed 4500. In this country the tiniest mammal lives in the world, a Sphinonasi bat. The first states of Thailand. 1300 BB-1238 AD. Suvarnabhumi. Dvaravati. Lavo. Harapunzi. Sinkanavati. Panpang. Raktamaratika. Lankasuka. Shrivadzi. Tamberling. Sukaho. 1238-1448. In parallel existed lands. 1296-1558. Nakonsit 1283-1468. Athaya 1351-1767. Thonburi 1768-1782. Ratanakasan 1782-1932. Kingdom of Thailand. Military dictatorship 1932-1973. Democracy 1973, end of century. The history of the country originates from the kingdom of the Sukaho formed in 1238. The kingdom at Thaya, founded in 1350, became his successor. By the end of the 15th century Ayutthaya became the dominating state on the Indochina peninsula, having subordinated to itself the Empire of Khmers, modern Cambodia and the south of Vietnam. Contacts of Ayutthaya with Europeans began with the beginning of the 16th century. In 1511 there arrived the ambassador of Portugal here. He was followed by representatives of France, Holland and England. Since the second half of the 17th century the wars of Siam with Burma broke and roll over Indochina, which were going over with variable success, which were ended in the 1770 years in favor of Siam by Thaksin and Prairie Badiat Jalala began. The last, after the cruel execution of Thaksin in 1782, came to the throne as the king under the name of Rama I, having based Chakri's dynasty governing on the most part of the peninsula. Also he is considered the founder of Bangkok. In 1782, in the first half of the 19th century there were several wars of Siam to Vietnam, as a result of which under control of Bangkok Cambodia returned. In the second half of the 19th century formation of a colonial system in Southeast Asia began, and Siam was the only state of this region which kept independence, generally because became a buffer zone between colonies of Great Britain, Burma, Malaya, and France, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam. Generally peaceful revolution in 1932 led to the fact that Thailand became constitutional monarchy. Earlier known as Siam, Thailand for the first time received the present name in 1939, and for the second time already finally in 1949 after World War II. During this war Thailand supported Japan, and after her termination became the ally of the USA. Prince Damrong Ratchanubat was one of the most famous representatives of the Thai culture of that period. He became the founder of a modern education system of the country and the system of provincial management. He was also a historian and one of the most influential intellectuals of Thailand of the time. Damrong Ratchanuba became the first Thai included in the list of UNESCO of the most honored people. Growth of cost of labor in the 1970th years in such countries as Japan, Singapore, Taiwan and South Korea, led to the fact that multinational corporations began to move productions to the countries where the labor remained cheap, in particular to Thailand. Inflow of foreign investments. First of all, the Japanese. In 1970th and 80th quickly dedues about 10% a year. An export volume 14% a year began. However, this process affected Thailand as the state a little. Expenses on creation of infrastructure for creation of favorable investment climate grew, and these expenses paid off only partially. As a result, the deficit of the balance of payments and an external debt grew. To the middle of the 1990th years, the Central Bank of Thailand exhausted the currency reserves. Devaluation of the Thai baht began. Crisis in the Thai economy became the main reason for the Asian economic crisis of 1997. Thailand received the financial aid in the form of the credits for total amount of $17.2 billion. From the International Monetary Fund and other organizations provided on condition of rigid reduction of an account part of the budget of the country. It was succeeded to reach the pre-crisis level of real DDD only in 10 years. On December 26, 2004, the tsunami fell upon the southwest coast of Thailand. 5,400 people in Thailand, half of whom, tourists, about 3,000 more were missing, died. Main articles. A coup in Thailand. 2006. And the political crisis in Thailand. 2008-2010. On September 19, 2006, there were messages about a military coup in Thailand. The Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, being at the session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, I declared a state of emergency in the country and I urged military to stop illegal maneuvers. Having taken the main government objects, Pachis declared the loyalty to the king. In January 2008, military delegated the power to the new government headed by the Prime Minister Samak Sundarevi. At the end of August, the beginning of September 2008, in the capital of Thailand, there took place demonstrations and collisions between supporters and opponents of the government of Sundarevi. After Samak Sundarevi's removal by a court decision at the beginning of September 2008 and refusal him from re-election for a post, the king confirmed the Prime Minister Somchai Vongsavat to the post. On May 20, 2014, martial law is imposed. On May 22, 2014, through the whole country, military entered a curfew from 22 o'clock till 5 o'clock for prevention of disorders. In resort areas it was cancelled in 2 weeks, in Bangkok, a little later. The commander of Army of Thailand, General Prayut Chan-o-cha, in a televised address to the nation declared a military coup in the country. Also, it was suspended the constitution. In 2020 in Thailand, anti-governmental protests on which for the first time for all history of the country the question of reforming of the monarchy was brought up to discussion in parliament began. The emblem of Thailand represents a red Garuda, a figure of Buddhist and Hindu mythology. The form of government, constitutional monarchy. Actually, military dictatorship since 2014. The head of state, the king. The king lost the absolute power, but remains the supreme commander, a symbol of unity of the nation and the defender of the Buddhism. The previous king Rama IX, who died in 2016, was held in full respect of the nation, which was sometimes used during the political crises. After his death, his son Mokkhavajiralongkorn Makadol became the king Rama X. Parliament of Thailand. Till 2014 it was the two-chamber National Assembly consisting of the Senate on 150 places and the House of Representatives on 480 places. In May 2014 the National Legislative Assembly from 220 dix appointed military regime became parliament. In 2016 the number of dix was increased up to 250. Under the Constitution of 2017, restoration of two-chamber parliament is supposed. The Senate will be appointed to 250 places by military. The House of Representatives will be elected a general election for a period of 4 years. Elections were planned for February 2019 to 500 places. The Prime Minister, the General Prayut Chan-o-cha. Since August 25, 2014. Thailand, the active member of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. According to Economist Intelligence Unit, the country in 2018 was classified under the Index of Democracy as the hybrid mode. Geographically, climatic, in terms of natural resources, a variety of forms of relief and even the ethnic structure of the population. Thailand is divided into 5 main regions: Central, East, Northern, Northeast and Southern Thailand. Thailand is subdivided into 77 provinces. In 2013 the municipal unit, the capital of the country Bangkok, received the status of the independent 77th province. At the end of the 19th century Thailand, then Siam, saw the possible ally in the Russian Empire, counting on the help and upholding of the independence of the colonial powers of Europe and maintaining political sovereignty. A relationship between two states gradually became stronger. In 1882, under command of the Rear Admiral A.B. Aslanbekov from Russia to Siam, there arrived the squadron on the occasion of centenary anniversary of establishment of the power of a dynasty of Chakri. In 1888, the Russian composer P.A. Surovsky wrote music of the Anthem of Siam, which since 1932 became the personal anthem of the royal family. In 1891 the Russian Crown Prince Nikolai visited Bangkok. The same year Siamese Prince Damrong arrived in the Crimea, where had an audience at the Russian Emperor Alexander III. In 1896 Prince Chira as the guest was present at a ceremony of a crowning of the Emperor Nicholas II. Diplomatic relations between Russia and Siam were established officially during the visit of the King Chulalongkorn Ram 5 to Russia from July 2 to July 10, 1897. On December 4, 1897 Alexander Olerovsky was appointed the Chargé d'Affaires and the Consul General of the Russian Empire in Siam. The Russian Consulate General was open in Bangkok, and subsequently it was expanded to a mission which existed till 1917. On June 23, 1899 in Bangkok the Declaration Concerning Jurisdiction, Trade and Navigation was signed. Due to the friendly nature of a Russian-Siamese relationship and expansion of cultural ties, Royal Guardsmen of Siam till 70th wore a uniform Russian Nilibhusa. Some elements of this form remained also till our time. At the end of the beginning of the 20th century, a number of dukes of the Siamese royal family and dignitaries visited Russia. Many young aristocrats got an education in Moscow and St. Petersburg. The son of the King Chulalongkorn, Ram 5. Prince Chakrobin lived several years in Russia, studied in the Pozetsky case and Academy of Ground Forces, served in the Russian army. In 1906 he married Ekaterina Desnitskaya, who gave birth to him to the son. After 1917 there was a short break in a bilateral relationship. Diplomatic relations between the USSR and Thailand were established on March 12, 1941. In 1947 between two countries the agreement on exchange of diplomatic missions was signed, and in a year the embassy began the work in the capital of Thailand. During Cold War and until the end of the 70th a bilateral relationship had neutral character. The stamp of Russia devoted to the 100th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations between Russia and Thailand, the Big Palace, Peterhof, with the big cascade fountain at the left, and that Benchamubaket on the right. 1997, 1500 rubles. It's 375, Scott 63.96. The official visit of the Prime Minister of Thailand Kriangsak Shamanan to the USSR in 1979 became the new period of a relationship. During this visit the Soviet and Thai Society of Friendship was created. From the middle of the 80th, in connection with positive changes in world political arena, a bilateral relationship gradually began to become stronger again. In 1987 the first exchange of visits of ministers of foreign affairs of two countries took place. In May 1988 the General Praeritin Siranon, the Prime Minister of Thailand, paid an official visit to Moscow. In February 1990 1. Ryzhkov, the chairman of the Board of Ministers of the USSR, arrived with an official visit to Bangkok. On December 28, 1991 the government of Thailand recognized the Russian Federation as the sovereign state and confirmed the intentions in development of mutually beneficial bilateral relations. Since the beginning of the 21st century a bilateral relationship steadily gained steam in the key directions of cooperation. The culmination of this process was the visit to Thailand in October 2003. The President of the Russian Federation 5. V. Putin with the spouse, become the first visit of the Russian President to the Kingdom of Thailand from the moment of the collapse of the USSR. This trip had unique character and in terms of the international diplomatic protocol, having incorporated a private visit of the Russian President by the invitation of the Prime Minister of the time of Thailand Thaksin Shinawatra, an official visit by the invitation of the Thai Prime Minister, participation in the summit of member countries of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, and at last, the state visit by the invitation of His Majesty of the King Ramanayan Bhumipona Adulyadej. In total the trip took more than 5 days. The parties managed to reach a number of constructive arrangements, in particular, on settlement of debt of the former USSR to Thailand of $36.5 million. On December 13, 2005 Russia and Thailand signed the agreement on visa-free trips, providing a possibility of visa-free stay of Russians with the tourist purposes in Thailand and Thais in Russia for up to 30 days. The agreement came into force since March 23, 2007. Some sites of border of Cambodia with Thailand, including sea, accurately aren't defined.
On November 5, 2009, Thailand recalled the ambassador from Cambodia in protest at appointment of the Thai ex-leading Thaksin Shinawatra as the government of Cambodia as the economic advisor that entailed deterioration in diplomatic relations between two countries.
Royal Thai Armed Forces consist of 3 divisions: Royal Thai Army, Royal Thai Navy and Royal Thai Air Force. The obligatory compulsory military service life, works 2 years in the country for men. A defense expenditure in 2017 made 1.5% of GDP. The number of armed forces is 306,000 people, 245,000 more reservists. Advantages: successfully outpassed to stable market economy. Low inflation, 3.2%. Rather higher rates of economic growth and low public debt. Still rather cheap and well educated, in comparison with the developed countries of Asia and Europe. Labor. In the conditions of sharp falling of unemployment rate and strengthening of deficiency of labor, growth of the salary as of 2019 isn't contained by economic slowdown. Weaknesses: strong corruption. Slowly progressing market reforms. Small volume of investment into infrastructure and research and development. The biggest problem, the deficiency of able-bodied labor increasing every year and growth of number of pensioners, in connection with low birth rate and high emigration of the population in others, richer, the countries of the world. The economy of Thailand strongly depends on export. More than a half of GDP of the country is the share of them. The main export goods are
machines, the equipment and electronics. In 2017, the total amount of the specified commodity group was estimated at $84.8 billion, that makes about 39.5%.
Further products follow from rubber and plastic minus $26.1 billion, at 12.1%. And also chemicals, agricultural products, including food and products of light industry. The total amount of export in 2017, $215 billion. For 2012, Thailand took the 9th place among the largest car makers in the world. Here the Japanese and Korean companies generally place the production capacities. Since January 1, 2020, the minimum wage makes from 313 to 336 baht a day.
From $10.44 to $11.21 a day,
depending on the region. Thailand, one of the world's largest producers and exporters of rice. Annually, the country supplies up to 9 million tons of rice of various grades to the world market, including the well-known jasmine rice, called so because of delicate natural aroma. Share of agricultural products in GDP of Thailand about 10%. Besides rice, corn, sweet potatoes, pineapples, cocos. Generally in the southern region. A sugar cane, bananas, soy, palm oil is made, also cassavas. The country gains a large income from export, the king of fruit, durian, which was learned to be cultivated for the first time exactly here. Thailand is the 3rd largest exporter of seafood in the world, first of all shrimps. About a half of the population is engaged in agriculture and more than 40% of the territory of Thailand are cultivated, and from this share more than a half is occupied with rice fields. On production of rice the country long time was the world leader, only rather recently having conceded the championship of India and to Vietnam. In Thailand 19 registered airlines work. Their general park consists of 276 planes. For 2015 they transported more than 54 million passengers. In the country 101 airports, from them 63 with a hard coating, and 8 are a runway more than 3 km long. Total length of railway tracks of Thailand is 41.27 km, almost all of them narrow gauge. 1000. A standard track. 1435. Only on 84 km of ways. A condition of railroad tracks on stage is good, sufficient for the movement with a speed of 100 km/h. Passenger traffic is provided with trains with cars of the third classes. The first class with conditioners, the second class without conditioners, and the third class sedentary cars with free pass for ties. Cargo trains are generally occupied with transportations of containers. The network of highways makes 180,000 km, of them 450 km of high-speed roads. For 2006. Total length of navigable sections of the rivers is about 4,000 km. The fleet of the country consists of 781 vessels with the displacement more than 1,000 gross register tons, of them 240 tankers, 25 bulk carriers, 23 container carriers, 94 other cargo ships. The largest ports with container terminals are Lamshabang, English Lemshabang, 7.2 million to, and Bangkok, 1.5 million to, is also the terminal for intake of liquefied gas in Maptopkut.
Tourism brings considerable income in the economy of Thailand and makes about 16–18% of GDP of the country.
At the same time, the considerable share is the share of internal tourism. In 2018, Thailand was visited by more than 38 million foreigners. The most popular destinations are Bangkok, Chiang Mai, Pattaya, Phuket, Samui and Krabi. In 2015, electricity generation was 167.9 billion hours. The 24th place in the world. And her consumption minus 168.3 billion hours. The 23rd place in the world. Import of the electric power exceeds export minus 14.41 billion hours, mine 2.267 billion hours.
The general nominal generating power of the power plants of Thailand is 40.97 million du.
The 24th place in the world. From them 76.7% are the share of thermal power plants. Generally on natural gas. 8.9% for hydroelectric power stations and 14.2% for alternative renewable sources. The need for oil partially covers Thailand with own production, which in 2016 was 257,500 barrels a day. The 33rd place in the world.
However, oil import much more exceeds export minus 830.5 thousand mine 12.2 thousand barrels a day.
As of 2014. On the proved oil reserves for 2017, Thailand took the 52nd place in the world. 396.4 million barrels. On natural gas, the 43rd place. 206.8 billion m. From the consumed 53 billion m. Gas in a year of 40 billion m.
It is the share of own production in the offshore field Platon located at the bottom of the Gulf of Thailand. The rest is imported from Qatar, which delivers liquefied gas on the Map Tafat El Naum terminal.
Fixed telephone communication is developed rather poorly. In the country for 2017 there were 291 million subscribers, that is on 4 phone lines on 100 people. The 49th place in the world. Services are provided by both the state telephone company and private operators.
By the number of subscribers of mobile communication, Thailand takes the 11th place in the world, minus 121.53 million, that by 1.78 times surpasses population.
Thailand is connected to the main underwater cable systems and also has earth-based stations for 2 satellites in Telsat, the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. In the country, more than 32 million people have internet access. 2016, the 21st place in the world. From them, more than 8 million have broadband connection. The 18th place in the world. As of 2018, volume of export were $262 billion, import $227 billion, the balance of foreign trade, $35 billion is positive. Main articles of export: machines, equipment and electronics, 32%, including office appliances and integrated circuits. Vehicles, 12.8%, including cars. Products from plastic and rubber, 11.7%. Food and agricultural products, including rice, sugar, seafood. The main buyers in 2018: China, $31 billion. USA, $29.3 billion. Japan, $24.9 billion. Vietnam, $13 billion. And Hong Kong, $12.5 billion. Main articles of import: machines, equipment and electronics, 29%. Including integrated circuits, nuts and units, TV, radio, broadcasting and communication equipment. Fuel, 17.6%. Including crude oil, natural gas and oil products. Metallurgical products and raw materials, 11.9%. And also various finished products and semi-finished products, gold, agricultural raw materials. The chief suppliers in 2018: China, $45.6 billion. Japan, $31.6 billion. Malaysia, $13.9 billion. USA, $12.8 billion. And Singapore, $9.86 billion. The population of Thailand generally consists of ethnic Thais and Laotians, 80%. Also there is a big community of ethnic Chinese, 10%, to whom the former Prime Minister of Thailand Thaksin Shinawatra belongs. Other ethnic groups are presented by Malayans, Hmong, Khmers and also Vietnamese who settled in East Thailand even since the Vietnamese War.
94.6% of residents of Thailand profess the Buddhism. 3% are Muslims. Generally, it is the Malayans living in the south of the country. Christians in the country about 1%. In Thailand, the king is not only the head of state, but also the patron, the defender of all religions. During the crisis periods, he acts as the reconciling intermediary, without taking someone's part. The King of Thailand, the leader and the national symbol which is above policy, and therefore he interferes with political cases, only when necessary for prevention of bloodshed. The love and respect for the royal family carries in Thailand, according to official representatives, almost religious character. Throughout the last century, or it is even a little more, to each reigning king as well as to dicks of his family, hot participation in well-being of the people and allegedly personal interest in prosperity of all citizens is officially attributed. Besides nominal,
quite moderate, ritualistic, connected with the king's cult, Thais profess Buddhist doctrine. In the 13th century in Thailand, the Hinayana Buddhism, meaning the small chariot, was officially recognized. The second large branch of the Buddhism carries the name Mahayana, the Great Chariot. Now the term Hinayana is considered to be outdated and it goes out of use, being the replaced self-name of this branch of the Buddhism, Theravada, the doctrine of the oldest. Theravada, one of Buddhism options which is written down in a so-called Palisky canon, which his followers call the most ancient, the most beautiful and the closest to the original doctrine of Gautama Buddha. Followers of other versions of the Buddhism approve the same about the religious and philosophical concepts, but it doesn't lead to the religious conflicts. In this doctrine there are strict rules concerning which the scornful tone is unacceptable, especially tourists. Is a respect for Buddha's image, for temples, monks and also some restrictions of freedom of behavior for women. However, ceremonies and rituals in general it is much simpler than in the Indian Buddhism of a Mahayana. The Buddhism and other beliefs and religions found reflection in the Thai art and in life of monasteries.
Historically in Siam there were two cultures.
The court, based on Buddhist values and absorbed in itself Hinduism elements. Other culture is the culture of the country village with national songs and dances. The most known of them, in which usually involve also tourists. Belief in spirits, fairy tales, ceremonies of an agricultural cycle and a cycle of human life. It is also possible to refer to national culture, also national crafts, production of objects of use, processing of a tree, a house sholkatkachestvo, weaving from a rod, a rattan, etc. It is possible to refer the Thai classical theatre, Kun, which is followed by a traditional orchestra of the Thai music, Pichij, singing and a recitative of readers, architecture of Buddhist monasteries, wall frescoes of temples, sculptural images of Buddha to court culture. The traditional sculpture of Thailand is presented, first of all, his images and is among the most considerable works of Buddhist art in the world. Buddha is represented in the certain initial poses making sense for the Buddhist. Exist also a set of styles of the sculptural image. All this is in the National Museum in Bangkok. To the west from Bangkok, near the town of Naphon there is the biggest mortar in the world, 127 meter Krapatam Chedi, and in 16 came to the northwest from Chiang Mai one of Buddhism shrines, Wat Prakat Doi standing the temple at mountain top Suthap is located. In Thailand more than Buddhist temples in which about 370,000 monks and novices live. This is about 1 monk on 170 citizens.
The second most important religion in Thailand is Islam, which is practiced by about 4.6% of the population, generally residents of the southern provinces close to Malaysia.
In Thailand, the Christianity is also presented. The very first mention of Christians in Thailand, Siam, is recorded in traveling notes of the Italian traveler Ludovic from Versima, who visited Southeast Asia about 1505.
From his records it becomes clear that Armenians who lived here constantly and did business in India were the first Christians in Thailand.
In the 1617 VV, Christianity Catholic missionaries extended here.
Now the Catholic and Protestant communities and also 11 parishes of Russian Orthodox Church and 1 monastery act in the country.
Everything, by different estimates, from 0.7% to 1.7% of the population of the country profess Christianity. Generally it is inhabitants of mountain northern regions. The most part of Christians, Catholics, but are also communities of Protestants, Presbyterians, Baptists, Adventists, Lutherans, believers of the Assemblies of God. The flag of Thailand represents 5 horizontal strips, from top to down.
Red, white, blue.
Double thickness. White and red. Red color symbolizes the nation and blood of life, white purity of the Buddhism, blue the monarchy. The text of the national anthem of Thailand, according to Thait Kalani Chatmelt, was accepted in 1939. The author, Kra Gendariong. Words are set to music, accepted in 1932. The author, Luang Saranaprapan. Under the law, it is necessary to get up at performance of the national anthem, and he is executed in Thailand twice a day, at 8 o'clock and 18 o'clock, on television and radio, and also at schools, offices and theaters. Besides the national anthem, there is also royal anthem, Kaling Sanlasong Krayan Bars, a salute to the monarch, executed in the presence of the royal family and at some official ceremonies. The esteemed beings are a Garuda, the mythical semi-person, a semi-bird represented on the coat of arms, and an elephant. Original Thai custom is the Thai greeting. It occurs in different forms, depending on the social status of people. As a rule, the greeting consists in playful gesture by hands, and jolly mudra of the Indian subcontinent borrowed from inhabitants or small bow of the head. The greeting often is followed by the quiet smile symbolizing hospitable temper and a pleasant attitude towards people. More difficult greeting are the specks and specks. At specks of people kneels, and his hips lean on heels. In specks at greetings of the king and eminent persons of people kneels, hands in a lotus bud, are raised up and dropped, on a floor. The respect of social hierarchy is important in the culture of Thais. Custom Boon Hoon emphasizes respect for parents, trustees and teachers. In the country, the respect for a royal dynasty and the king is cultivated. The previous governor of Thailand, Bhumibol Adulyadej of Ram 9, was called the Envoy of Heaven, Father and Supporter. Roughness, also disrespect for the Thai money, as on them there is an image of the King of Thailand, is considered. Official language in Thailand is Thai, belonging to the Thai group Thai language family. Thai consists of several versions on which tell different social groups of the population. Most of Thais can speak and understand in all kinds of Thai. Literary, rhetorical and language is taught at schools.
The Thai alphabet was created in 1283 by the king Ramakayang Veliki. The inscription on the Great Stele Ramakayang created in 1292, in which the biography of the king and the chronicle of the kingdom is described, was one of the first works written in Thai.
Literature long time was in Thailand under strong influence of the Indian Hindu culture. The most considerable works of the Thai literature is Ramayana's version, the Hindu epos, under the name Ramakien, Songtongpu, written to Rama I and Rama II's board and verses.
Ramayana's version differs in a significant role in the work by god monkey Hanuman from the original and the happy end of the work.
Most of the oldest were lost by the version of the epos in 1767, during attack of Burmans on the city of Attaya. During Ratanakosin, 1782-1932. Early Thai literature endured rise and reached the top.
Considerable poetic and creative energy of this period was directed to revival or restoration of national treasures which were lost or forgotten.
Were restored on memory of living poets, and the works Ramakien and Kun Chang Kun Thien registered. The poetry became more and more distinguished. Works by foreign classics, including the Chinese novels Troits Arstvailo Gonshin, River Creeks of Shinayan, etc., were translated into Thai. Nowadays, chief national poet of Thailand is the poet Songtongpu, the author of the poem Pra Pay Money, in 30,000 lines, 1835. In the poem Adventures of the Saravicha Pay Money, his brother Zai Wong and the son of Sisamouth are described. The Thai kings Rama V and Rama VI were writers also. Annually on June 26 in Thailand, the day of Songtongpu is celebrated. In 1986 in Thailand, with participation of the UNESCO organization, the 200th anniversary since the birth of the poet was solemnly celebrated. Thai fine arts traditionally Buddhist. I had an impact on the Thai art and architecture, the Khmer and Monsky art. The modern Thai art is combined with traditional Thai elements. Originally, artists in Thailand were engaged in wall paintings with plots from Buddha's life. The Thai images of Buddha of different eras have a number of distinctive features. The style of the Thai artists had ethnic motives. In the Middle Ages, in the country art of a book miniature appeared. Traditional Thai pictures were painted without use of prospect. The size of each element reflects degree of its importance in the drawing. The main reception of composition consists in placement in a picture of the zones isolated from each other. The prospect in painting appeared as a result of influence of the Western culture in the middle of the 19th century. The monk artist of Krua from Khom was the first artist using linear prospect in the Thai painting. Arts and crafts of Thailand reached skill in ceramics, a carving up to a bone, to a tree, a tortoise board, painting of fabrics.
Before formation of the first large Thai state of the Sakhaho of the area of Thailand,
and from 12th century in the whole country, were a part of the Monsky and Khmer states of Batnan, Dvaravati, Chenla and Kambodscha.
After Kambodja's falling, the Thai states of the Sakhaho, Attaya and Bangkok became the main successors of the Cambodian culture, as in Cambodia there were no conditions for her development.
The Thai architecture originates from the Cambodian. All development of the Thai art culture is connected with the Buddhism, which in the Thai option included also some Hindu motifs. In monumental architecture, the main types of constructions, a mortar and the temple. The Thai mortars go back to Monsky and Khmer prototypes. Smoke. The prairie prefix means saint. A basis of development of temples is the building with brick or stone columns and a wooden roof.
The most striking example of architectural creativity of Thais is the complex of temples and the big royal palace in Bangkok.
The buildings which are in the territory of temples have various form and value. It is usually sanctuaries, halls for religious ceremonies, libraries and schools.
Walls can decorate scenes from the Hindu epos.
Ramakien.
The King Rama II translated Ramayana into Thai. And images of mythological animals. In the yard of monasteries, the sacred tree of Bodki often meets. Numerous sculptures of the mythical beings having supernatural force and protecting the monastery are here too presented. In spite of the fact that the temple architecture in Thailand for many years underwent changes, all architectural styles adhere to the same principles. The Thai temple, with rare exception, consists of two parts: Kutavata and Sank. Kutavata, the place devoted to Buddha. It includes several buildings. Mandapa, the square or crosswise building, a shrine in the Thai Buddhist temple or the temple complex. Here relics, the sacred writing, can be stored.
Unlike a mandapa of the Khmer or Indian temple, which are a part of larger structure, the Thai mandapa is the independent room.
The mortar is constructed in the form of kalakolchati. The tower, which is often covered with gold, the cam for placement of relics, is arranged here. The Thai version of the Khmer temple tower was arranged in temples of the period of the Sakaho and Naoti. The most sacred vat area. 8 stones of Sam. Note the consecrated area. Vikara. In the Thai temples designates the place in which the main images of Buddha are stored. It is the hall where monks and laymen gather. Ho tray. Temple library or storage of the sacred writing. The Torah, the cubic building where the pyramidal roof is supported by columns, is under construction in a look. Vat. T. The open shaded pavilion, the vacation spot. Sala Kanparian. The big open hall where laymen listen to sermons or get religious education. It is used for pronouncing prayers in the second half of day. Horakang. The bell tower is used for awakening of monks and the announcement of morning and evening ceremonies. Phra Rabiang is under construction around sacred internal area as monastery for accommodation. In addition, at the temple, the crematorium or school are under construction. The theatre of Kun masks and other classical Siamese dances appeared in the kingdom at Thao. Kun was the most ancient theatrical genre in the country. In the beginning, the danskun was executed only at the royal court.
The troupe of theatre consisted only of men.
Men executed as well female roles. There was also a female Kona version, Kun Fu Ying. So far in Kun theatre also women work. During representation, actors of theatre don't say the text, read it off stage. Representation is followed by a game of orchestra and singing of singers. All gestures and the movement of actors have symbolical value. Fragments from Ramakian are played on stage.
In the beginning, the troupe of Royal Theatre Kun acted without scenery in the open air.
But to the middle of the 19th century there were scenery, decoration of a scene, and representations were given in the palace. Music of Thailand includes classical and national musical traditions. The Thai classical music developed about 800 years ago. In Thailand, styles of traditional music like Thang and Morlam, cult music Pifat which symbolizes dance of dragons, the Thai country music of Lukthang, folk music of Morlam of the northeast region of Isan enjoy popularity. For execution of music, musical instruments are used. A rank a zither. Jake. Chlong tap reels. In the form of a cup. Chlong keek. A drum in the form of a barrel. And wooden sticks. Many composers wrote down the works in a musical notation. So the composer Luang of Pradit Pharaoh, 1881-1954. For record of music used local forms of the code of a musical notation, Montretramet, 1908-1995. Used standard Western writing. Except the Thai music, ethnic minorities of La, the Lava Mon, Aki, the Khmer, the Fox, Karen and Lak keep the traditional forms of music. Fundamentals of Thai cuisine makes rice dishes. Rice is used for food with meat and fish, with seafood, etc. Here grow up different types of rice. White, black, red, fragrant, sticky. Other bases for the Thai dishes are noodles which can be wheat, rice, egg, from flour of beans, etc. It is very extended in the country Thai by a curry.
Hieng.
Here several types of a curry prepare. Yellow curry. Hieng curry. Curry of northern Thai cuisine. Hieng ki. Green sweet curry. Hieng ki wan. Sticky spicy curry. Hieng phet. Sour curry. Hieng som. Muslim curry. Hieng matsaman. Soup with noodles of a curry. Queso. Cream soft curry. Penang, etc. Are most popular in Thai cuisine of a dish. Sharp and sour soup tom yam. Spicy salad from a papaya of Samdare. Soup cockeyes.
Tom cockeye.
Current with coconut milk and with chicken. Rolls with papaya sod sausage. Pasta with the chicken crab sauce. Meat on yam no grill. The rice pad noodles melt, etc. Film production in Thailand appeared in the 30s to 20th century, before films were shot incidentally. Since the end of the 20th century, the new wave of the Thai cinema develops. The Thai directors of Panek Ratanaruang and the Pichitong Virasetikan became world famous. Their movies are nominated at the international film festivals. In 2010, the movie, The Uncle Bunmi Who Remembers the Antecedents, the director Pichitong Virasetikan received Golden Palm of a Cannes Film Festival. The famous Thai film actors are Tony Dea, Meetche Banka, Matani Sumbat. The following movies about martial arts gained fame: On Tank, Honor of a Dragon, Chocolate, Ong Bak 2, Unsurpassed, Ong Bak 3. Famous horror films: Phobia, Phobia 2. Famous movies, dramas: Bad Genius, The Known Lacorna, the Thai TV series soap operas, Life Waves, My Lawful Husband. Famous singers and dancers: Thumpyang Dwangchen, Tata Young Bembem, Fox Manaben. The kernel of the Thai folklore proceeds from ethnic religion. Long-time folk beliefs were transferred from one generation to another orally. In the Thai folklore, the set of spirits meets May Nak, Prita, Nang Thani. National fairy tales and legends of Thailand were used by elders for education of younger generation. Many of fairy tales contain immoral and moral lessons imparting respect for seniors, parents and the administration. Legends on inner world teach children to be careful, to stay at home at night, to respect local customs and rituals. Many Thai national fairy tales are based on Buddhist texts. Thailand is famous for products of national art crafts. They meet everywhere, the largest centers of crafts in Bangkok and Chiang Mai. Thailand, one of the producers of silk and cotton products, largest in Asia, furniture and carved wooden products. Numerous shops offer ceramics, latex products, caskets, the painted fans and umbrellas, products from bronze and brass, the Thai dolls, etc. It is possible to find a set of an inexpensive jewelry from silver in Thailand and yellow gold, traditional for Asia, with gemstones, rubies, emeralds, sapphires. Thais live according to the Thai solar calendar, a kind of the Buddhist calendar, according to which chronology at them begins from the date of Buddha's death in 543 BC. Thus, 2021 add on a Gregorian calendar corresponds to 2564 of a Buddhist era.
Thai boxing or Mai Melt.
The martial art of Thailand, which came from ancient Thai martial art Ram. The term Mai proceeds from a Sanskrit mavya and melt, in translation meaning a duel free or free fight. In modern Mai melt it is possible to strike blows with fists, stupnim shins, elbows and knees, because of it Mai melt call, fight of 8 extremities. From karate or wushu, Mai melt distinguishes lack of formal complexes. The cat to a tail. They are replaced by basic sheaves from 2 free blows, sparring and work on paws and bags.
In the homeland Muay Thai became popular in the 16th century, but world fame I took this sport only in the second half of the 20th century after the Thai fighters won a number of impressive victories over representatives of other single combats. Today Muay still has huge popularity in Thailand, where there is even a holiday, Day of National Boxing Muay Thai. Outside Thailand, the popularity of Thai boxing continues to grow, in many respects thanks to development of the mixed martial arts, which are intensively applying Muay for fight in Iraq.
Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.